And when I discovered Tantra, I got into such a rage, honestly, because it was like, why am I discovering this now? Why has no one told me this when I was 14, when I was 18, when I was 25, when I was 30, for Christ's sake? And for the first time in my life, I felt a sense of purpose, and I was like, okay, this people need to know. They really need to know.
But I guess it starts with the mental.
For me, it started with actually turning off the mental, because, you know, being an engineer, I had almost no relationship with my body, right? I was always in my head, and for a very long time, right? Since high school, basically all I did was study, work with my head. And the only times I was thinking about my body was when it was not performing, right? I'm sick, I'm too fat, I don't dance well enough, maybe I don't have sex well enough. Yeah, it was anytime I was annoyed because it was not doing what I wanted, but I did not have a real connection with my body, with its wisdom, with its flow.
I don't think I can do this without putting a bit of my own personal experience on the line, because like I'm not a good interviewer if I don't put out there, you know, what I go through myself. Of all my ex-boyfriends and an occasional one night stand, I have probably only orgasmed with 2 of them, and that's because I guess the people that I did do that with, they were more, I don't know if it was tantric, because I don't know if you can do tantric if you don't know what it is, but it was because they were more dialed into the experience. Not that we're getting deep or anything, guys.
Well, Tantra can be pretty deep, so no problem with that.
Tantra is something I've wanted to sink my teeth into in terms of exploring it and maybe even partaking in some of it for a long, long time, because I've heard it in different pop culture references. So I think the first time I heard about it was in Friends, and Sting's wife was on Friends, and they referenced that he does Tantra. And obviously we know Sting practices Tantra with his wife. And then there was also an episode of The Only Way is Essex, and then these boys are trying to pick up these girls and they take them to a Tantra class. But I don't think they're really engaging with the true sense of Tantra. But your practice specifically, it really bridges, you know, modern well-being with integrating something that is really ancient and has been used for millennia. So can you start us off with a little bit of a background and succinctly what Tantra is?
Yeah, it's funny because actually the first time I heard about Tantra was also Sting, and he was saying he was having 8 hours orgasm, and I was like, yeah, definitely something like that is going to be a part of my life at some point. And then it took time because it was less accessible than it is now. But Tantra really is it's a spiritual path, so it's not an organized religion. It's not also like just well-being, but the goal of Tantra is enlightenment, and it has been for thousands of years. However, very few of my clients come to me with enlightenment questions, but still, this is how the practices are designed, and this is what it has been. And it's a spiritual path that is based on love and compassion. You know, like many spiritual paths think that love is our nature, and we come from it, we go back to it. So reclaiming that nature. And the second pillar is meditation. So I keep saying my clients over and over, if it's not meditation, it's probably not Tantra.
How do you define enlightenment? Because you constantly hear it in yoga and all these different practices Buddhism, that are about namaste and all of this jazz. But what is that?
That's such a good question. It's a state of spiritual evolution where you go back to your true nature. And for example, in Buddhism, but also in some tantric paths, there is this belief that we are eternal souls and we choose to come and incarnate to have a human experience. And in some of those cultures, we believe that we come back, reincarnate until our soul has learned all the lessons. And once you have learned the lesson, you are in a state of enlightenment. It's one way of seeing it. Another one is, you are connected to love and to your divine self most of the time in your life. And I think some people, you can feel that, like some people who met Ama or maybe a Pope or maybe the Dalai Lama, they explain that they felt such a radiance of love from those beings. And I think this is what you might feel when you are in the presence of someone who is enlightened, a lot of love and often wisdom, if that makes sense.
In the presence of a what?
Enlightened being.
Enlightened being. Okay. Interesting. I feel like that was a very succinct way of wrapping up what Tantra is. But what was your personal journey of discovering what Tantra was and what led you to practice it?
It was very different because I was not a spiritual person and I was not on a spiritual path when I discovered Tantra.
Because you're I guess you still are an engineer, but your practice was engineering, and what we know about engineers and scientists, they're very methodical, they're most likely to be atheist and very regimented in what the truth can be, and what we see is only what we can assess.
Yeah, that was definitely my approach to life, and which it's an approach I still love very much, by the way.
Because it's comforting as well.
Yeah,
process.
And it's beautiful. Like, there is a lot of beauty in science, and I'm very happy that by now scientists are putting electrodes in yogis' brains and start to explain what meditation and Tantra have been saying for so long. Right now we have explanation, physical explanation for all the miraculous, weird sometimes thing that happen when you practice this. But to answer your question, I think in my 30s, things started to accelerate in my life. Like, I got the big promotion I wanted, I got the dream husband, I got the big apartment on the Upper West Side, all the things, right? And at some point I got pregnant and I collapsed inside. And I don't know if it was depression, burnout, spiritual awakening, you can call it probably many different things. But in that state of not knowing who I was anymore, I started to do two things. I was already meditating and I was asking in my meditation, tell me what my purpose is, tell me what my purpose is. And at that time I started to teach Tantra. And in that moment I was more into like, shut up, right? Tell me what my purpose is, like tell me which startup I should create, tell me which technology I should study. And I was not used to hearing my voices in my head. It felt completely crazy. I was not listening to that, but still it was coming back.
So you were a yogi before getting into Tantra? Yeah,
I practiced yoga and meditation for a long time before, but like at your classic yoga class. So I was really interested in the meditation, in the wellness, but I was not really into the spiritual part of yoga. And then I was in New York and I realized that being pregnant is a very feminine thing, obviously, which clashed with who I had
can say
become.
2025 now.
I think we can.
Yeah.
Is it okay? I was going to say yin because from the tantric perspective, obviously, but what I meant is, being an engineer, being a scientist, working in high tech, I had been surrounded by men most of my life, and I was working in a very masculine environment, and I was almost a man like the others, right? I was part of the man club and boys club, exactly. And so maybe this was the clash with my body creating a baby who is on the other opposite of that range, and I was looking for role models of women who were powerful, successful, and yet
but not just cosplaying a man.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And I found it hard, so I was looking for other types of inspiration, and I was looking for goddesses. Honestly, I was like, at some point there had to be figures, archetypes, something that was powerful and beautiful and yet 100% women. So I was in all the museums in New York, looking for goddesses, looking for references, and looking basically for the sacred feminine in a way that is not that easy to find in our pop culture. And then I found Tantra like that. I found an online class around the sacred feminine, and the teacher was a Tantra teacher. And that started my path, right?
So you found your, what did we say before to do with the snake?
I found my Kundalini.
Kundalini, which is not Kundalingus.
No, although we love both.
Yeah, we love both. So can you take us through the different steps and like mechanisms to Tantra? Like, what is the practice? Because we know it's about relaxing and meditating and having essentially stillness, but what are the actual practices and the steps and techniques that are integrated into the practice?
Oh, that's such a good question.
Without giving too much of the tea, obviously, of the,
Well, it's not Tantra was underground and secret for so many years.
But why?
So many
why
centuries.
Did you gatekeep it?
Because it was taboo, right? It was repressed. In Tantra, it's a spiritual path that practices with everything, right? So it practices with all the topics that were forbidden for a very, very long time. That includes sexuality, but not only that. And also it's a path that accepts everything and allows everything. So Tantra masters, they were teaching everyone. And, they were teaching women, they were teaching people who were not in the right social class to receive instruction. They were teaching people who maybe were not from the right ethnic to receive instruction. So there was something really groundbreaking and really challenging for the authorities. And whether it was India, Tibet, China, it was repressed centuries after centuries, sometimes more, sometimes less. And right now, I think I'm praying, finally getting accessible really easily, but it was not for such a long time, right?
But it must have been accessible at a certain point, because when you go back in history, it evolves from India, Hinduism, ancient Buddhism. So I guess kind of like a lot of history is that we didn't really have a big issue with it or whatever. And then whether it's migrates over to Europe and we had the Protestant situation, or kind of this movement to having traditional non-secular Christian values. I wonder if that's where the more tabooness came from, because I don't know if I'm basing this off anything, but I feel like in the ancient times it wasn't as taboo as it is now.
I think for most of it was actually.
Really?
It really was. And yeah, Tantra cross-pollinated with Buddhism, it cross-pollinated with Hinduism, but fundamental Tantra more or less was always hidden. It was always repressed. But there is a big part of Buddhism that is actually tantric, and there is a big part of Tantra that looks like Hinduism because it was developed by the reigning classes in India during the Middle Age. But when you look at it, it's how much Hinduism it is and how much Tantra it is quite questionable, but fundamental classical Tantra was not accepted in that. For example, in that Tantra, there were no women masters, there were no women gurus, sexuality was as taboo as in Hinduism. So real Tantra was repressed for a long time. And I was thinking actually almost the opposite. Like now it is more acceptable in the West, although it has a reputation of being overly sexual, but which it is not. But in India at the moment, for example, people think Tantra is black magic, right? So it is still repressed.
No, it's biology. But it's interesting that India is specifically, and these different cultures, Hinduism and Buddhism, they really pioneered yoga, Tantra, or even, practices of the Kama Sutra. So it's interesting to see how, something that is so potent in one culture is starting to spread and cross-pollinate and come into practices. I've never been to India myself, but I know from my friends who are Indian that there is a big relationship with spirituality and connecting with that side of yourself and your chakras. If I'm going in to a Tantra class, or I'm meeting up with you to go and learn about the practice, and I've never been to Tantra before, not really much of a yogi, I'm an engineer and I like science and I'm very exact, what kind of things can I expect going into learning about Tantra? Like, how would you work with a client to get through that?
Yeah, I think a lot of my clients, Indian, they come from my former world, right? So they are also accomplished professional, family person. And I think it's one of the beauty of Tantra that it's a path where you don't have to renounce your life. But from the start, it was meant to be lived in the life of the city, in the life of the people. And really the job is to integrate what you learn into your own life, right? And I really love that path. But what would happen and what does it look like? It looks like a lot of different things. Like people, when you say meditation, a lot of people think, you have to sit in silence with your eyes closed, with your spine straight. And of course we do that. But Tantra practices with everything, basically. So you have some meditation or some practices that are around the 5 senses. Some of them are around breath and breath work, and sometimes it can look a little bit like some yoga breath work. Sometimes it's a bit different. You can have mantras, you can have movement, you can have interaction with other people, you have massage, obviously, that a lot of people are interested in. Sexuality can also be a practice. So the practices are almost infinite, but the pillars, I would say, like we work with breath, we work with sound, and we work with movement.
I guess, is it unlocking a part of vulnerability? Because a lot of us are quite cagey in society. So it's like teaching people how to let go. And I guess that's not something that is a blanket approach for everyone. It's more to the individual. And I guess integrating parts of actual clinical therapy, of working through of why do you feel that way when this person is having this type of interaction with you? How does it make you feel? How do you think you should respond? How have you been told to respond? Is it more kind of like what you just said, blended with kind of therapeutic practices?
Well, what you describe is so accurate and so precise. Like, you are so perceptive that you got this from what I said, because that's exactly what happens, right? We create a situation, or I think ancient masters created those situations where you are a little bit outside of your comfort zone, or sometimes you are in, but you work with topics that are very charged. And because it's a meditation, you are invited to just witness, right? And welcome what is there. And in our daily life, we don't have time, or we don't have the capability to step back and just observe. So the first step is exactly like, you are in a situation that maybe you like, maybe you don't like, maybe is new, maybe is not new, and you observe, what is it for me, right? What is it that I'm feeling? Like, I think I should feel this, but I feel that. I think I should do it, but I don't really want to, or I did it, but it feels wrong. And just this bringing awareness into how you feel, how you make decision, what is going on in your mind, is really the first step, I think, of learning in Tantra, because you bring all of that into the light, and then you can choose. And they say Tantra is a path of freedom and liberation, and for me this is where it starts. The first step is awareness. Oh wow, I was always doing this without thinking about it, but it does not resonate with who I really am, or I have the freedom to do it in a different way. But because it comes from experience, it comes from the body, it comes from something you live, you learn in a very different way than if I was just telling it to you, or if you're reading it in a book. So because it's extremely experiential learning, then you access deeper layers of yourself. And I think also the transformation is so much more efficient. Of all the wellness tools or self-development tools I have worked with, and I've tried many before Tantra, for me this is the one that was like working so fast and so deep. And I think it's because it brings together the rational brain and all the other parts of you. Your soul, if you want to call it this way, your energy body, if that resonates, but also your primal brain, your unconscious, all of that is engaged. And so instead of just, maybe it happened to you, like you read something, you think it's such a brilliant idea, you try to apply it and it just doesn't work because another part of you is resisting, because it's not that easy to make fundamental changes. So with the practice of Tantra, this is what happens. You go into the deeper layers, and that's why transformation is so fast. And I think another aspect is Tantra brings you closer to who you are. It changes you in many ways, but not into becoming a different person, into reclaiming who you always were. And I think it's because you are going in the direction of yourself that the transformation is so fast and so powerful, because you are not trying to turn into someone you are not and you think you should be, but you are coming back to who you always were and becoming whole of that fabulous person.
So when I was born, was I always meant to be the person I was meant to be? It was all predisposed of how I was meant to be, and it's simply just layers that I get to take away. So I'm shedding things rather than burying them down inside, so I can reveal the true essence of who I was meant to be. Not that we're getting deep or anything, guys.
Well, Tantra can be pretty deep, so no problem with that. Yeah, in a way it is. In many religions or way of seeing lives, we are born in sin, or we are born imperfect, or we are born...
bastards.
Yeah, also, right? Yeah. Very much. and in Tantra, we believe we are immortal souls. So we are already divine. We are already perfect. We are just having a human experience, right? So coming back to that perfection, to who you are. But it doesn't mean, obviously, that you don't evolve and that you don't learn, right? It's also part of the process. But yeah, at least for me, my own experience is I was more removing things that I had buried or things that have been taught and coming back to my own truth than learning that many new layers or adding things.
It sounds like you were mentally cleaning yourself out, you know?
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah.
Even more than mentally, energetically.
Yeah. But I guess it starts with the mental.
For me, it started with actually turning off the mental because, being an engineer, I had almost no relationship with my body, right? I was always in my head. And for a very long time, right? Since high school, basically, all I did was study, work with my head. And the only times I was thinking about my body was when it was not performing, right? I'm sick, I'm too fat, I don't dance well enough, maybe I don't have sex well enough. Yeah, it was anytime I was annoyed because it was not doing what I wanted. But I did not have a real connection with my body, with its wisdom, with its flow. So turning off the rational brain, at least when I was learning, was the biggest lesson I got at the beginning, that I can learn in a different way, and there is wisdom in me that is not only in what I have learned abstractly, right? Coming back to experience in a way.
So that's your experience into it. But I guess with your various clients, obviously you can't go into the specifics of what they're experiencing, as interesting as that may be. But what are some common themes people come to your practice with, and what do they experience? Like, what's the number one problem? And then what is the number one recognition of what's happening?
Yeah, that's super interesting. And I think I have two main domains on which I work with my clients. The first one is people who have a very beautiful life, like a life that
Serene.
Everybody wants, right? They feel like they have ticked all the boxes and they feel dead inside, or they feel that maybe they climbed the wrong wall or whatever, like, they're like, what is wrong with me? I should be happy and I am not. So with those clients, we work on their purpose, on the conditioning, what it is they think they should do, and coming back to the part of them that wants to be alive and is not. That's one big chunk, right? And the rest is around sexuality and relationships. Either there is something they would like in their sex life and they can't get it on their own, or they have a problem with either their partner or with themselves. And then we work around what sexuality is, how the body actually works, and Tantra is really efficient into coming back into your own sexual power, sovereignty, and So there are two main topics, but I think in both cases what happens is they start becoming and feeling so much more than who they were before, right?
I think what I got from that is that you're describing that somewhere in our lives, from childhood to adulthood, for a lot of us, there's this space of loss. We stop playing and we stop keeping things light, and things get more serious. And I understand why we have that loss of fun and not caring and being able to switch off. But I guess in essence, like, your work is about really getting back to that, as you said, getting back to who you are or who you're meant to be. Because I do think, actually, the more you say it and the more I think about it, there are some things about when your cells meet together in the body and, your father's seed and your mum's seed kind of fuse together. There's just some things in there genetically that are who you are. And then there's things you evolve and learn along the way. And I think that so much of this, because if it doesn't fit into a certain mold in life, and what you're saying is a lot of people are trying to fit into molds, you just push it down, and it doesn't work. So I just wonder how the world would look with more tantric practices.
Oh, but that's my biggest hope, actually.
Yeah.
And I really hope actually that Tantra becomes as easily accessible as yoga, right? Because
I mean, what kind of classes are we doing? Like, we going from PG to X-rated?
There, you can really choose, right?
Yeah.
Like, you can do Tantra without bringing any sexuality in it at all, ever. Or you can do only that if this is what you like. So it's one option. But, you know, in the basic scripture for Tantra is called Vigyan Bhairav Tantra, and it's a beautiful text of 112 sutras, which are methods of meditation on everything in life.
But
and
not Kama Sutras.
no, that's the other one, which is also interesting, by the way, but very different. But, you know, on those 112 methods, only like 3 to 5 actually talk about sexuality. So technically Tantra is not at all only about sexuality. But, you know, there in those teachings, in those tantric teaching around sexuality, there is so much beauty, there is so much wisdom, there is so much knowledge that you can find basically nowhere else, that I really don't blame people who equate Tantra with sexuality, because those teachings are just so rare and so stunning. So that's why I want people to know that Tantra is about so much more. But if you get just that, then, you know, it's going to change your life completely. So that's already fabulous.
But because Tantra is so good and it changes so many people's lives in terms of being able to enjoy and let go, that's why they inject it into sex, because it makes the sexual experience better. So it's not a case of Tantra is sex, sex is Tantra. It's something we can apply and work in.
I really love how deep your understanding is. This is fabulous. This is one of the best conversations on Tantra I've ever had with someone who is not a Tantrika. I absolutely love that.
Do you think I could be a Tantra expert?
I think you were a Tantrika in a former life, probably.
But you know what? Like, I don't think I can do this without putting a bit of my own personal experience on the line, because, like, I'm not a good interviewer if I don't put out there, you know, what I go through myself. Because, like, my introduction to sex was very much, I think, what a lot of women go through. It's, you know, boys watching porn, and I have an idea of what it is from films and various bits of porn I've seen. And I'm very much there to look the best I can look, be a participant in them ejaculating and then clapping when they do it, like, woohoo! And not really thinking about myself too much in the process. But, like, of all my ex-boyfriends and an occasional one night stand, I have probably only orgasmed with 2 of them, and that's like probably about like 80% or so that I've not done that with. And that's because I guess the people that I did do that with, they were more, I don't know if it was tantric, because I don't know if you can do tantric if you don't know what it is, but it was because they were more dialed into the experience. Like, all those other times, were some of them a little bit fun? Yeah, but then, like, it just kind of evolves into this thing where it's, you know, just about slapping your naked bodies against each other. And I'm like, I don't know how you're getting so much out of this. I get absolutely nothing out of this. Now, as a 27-year-old and having done that, I'd rather shit in my hands and clap than do it again. Literally. Yeah.
Yeah, like, thank you so much for sharing. So honestly, and
it's a safe space.
I absolutely love how you describe it, because I can relate to it, and I'm so sure that most women, and probably a lot of men as well, can also relate to that. And it was the same for me, right? The education I received on sexuality was probably much better than the generation before. I got the, you know, don't get pregnant, don't get sick talk.
Don't get STDs, yeah.
But that's it, right? There, and then in movies, and especially in porn, that's not where you are finding
of the
it.
mind of not to enjoy ourselves.
Exactly. And when I discovered Tantra, I got into such a rage, honestly, because it was like, why am I discovering this now? Why has no one told me this when I was 14, when I was 18, when I was 25, when I was 30, for Christ's sake? So I really, and for the first time in my life, I felt a sense of purpose. And I was like, okay, this people need to know. They really need to know.
It's going to be my life's work.
Yeah, that's exactly what happened. And for the first time of my life, I was convinced this needs to be done.
You could be the scientist who split the atom. You're like, no.
Exactly. This is more important. It's also so much more fun. Not that I don't like splitting atoms, obviously, but, you know.
Yeah.
as we do.
I guess they cross lap a little bit, maybe.
They might.
So coming into this interview, I had so many questions, but I did want to look at a bit of data. And again, I don't know how they collect this data. Same to, I don't know how they collect salmon sperm that goes under people's eyes right now. Have you heard about this? Yeah. I don't know how they collect that.
I'm so curious about this scientifically.
But back to the male humans, the average time of penetrative sex is 5 minutes to 7.5 minutes. That's not foreplay. That's not, practicing Tantra or anything leading up. That's just the pure actual penetration. And obviously the man ejaculates at the end of that. But we were saying off camera how weird not weird, but how crazy is that the average when most women probably need like 20 plus minutes of stimulation. Like, why are we doing this standard that is just not serving us anymore? And you can understand like why they're turning to stuff like Tantra or like therapy and trying to work on themselves a bit more deeper and find things that actually do fulfill them.
Yeah, definitely. Like, this is a sad state of affair for women and also for men, because I'm sure if given the choice, they would like to have sex longer, obviously.
I don't know. I feel like you only know what you know, right?
That's the thing.
Yeah.
If they knew,
yeah,
they might like. But if we go in like straight into the weird and and unconventional part of Tantra, like definitely I look at that statistic because it was my life before also, and I remember how it was, and sometimes it was actually quite good, if you have nice foreplay before, nice aftercare after, it's not that bad. However,
like, when we just get going, he finishes.
Yeah.
Like when we've just started, it's like, blah, blah, blah. Like,
yeah. And I think Tantra has so many answers for this. So the one is that for men, right, they learn how to dissociate ejaculation and orgasm. They can have sex so much longer. That's one thing. Another one is in Tantra we accept that there are yin and yang phases in lovemaking, so you can have passionate time where you can bang your head against the bed if you like, but there are also times where it's more quiet, it's more energetic, it's softer, and when you alternate this, it doesn't matter that much whether the man has an erection. And definitely, we make love for hours in Tantra. It doesn't mean the man has to be hard for 5 hours in a row. It just means that you can keep making love in different ways in between, and so you ride the different waves, and every time you ride the next wave, it's higher, it's more pleasure, it's more orgasmic than the first one. I think as women we feel, right, instinctively that there is more to sex than just this one, up and down. We are meant to have several orgasms, one after the other, for a very long time. And what happens
for
when
health as well?
Yeah, exactly. And sanity.
Sacre bleu.
Bah, bien sûr. And then the orgasm change, their nature changes. It's not just this thing that you feel in one point of your body. They become orgasmic waves that go all through you, and then they become something bigger than you, right? This is when it starts to be sacred sexuality, because you feel like you connect with something higher than you connect with the soul of your partner, you connect with the source of everything, and then it's just so magnificent, and I can't believe it's being reduced to sex, 3 to 5 minutes of penetration. It's so much more.
But you described riding a wave of, having something more soft and intimate than, having something a bit more passionate and like grr. But I understand why the majority of people in this world are having what I would call bull terrier humping sex, because they're not able to access that sex can be this thing where it's soft and intimate, and then it's really, maybe a bit aggressive and grr again. But people don't know how to access that, and it really shows, and then it leaks into our personal lives, and then you've got like a tense population of women who kind of, they feel that they have to participate in life with a man who isn't even bothered enough to care about that. Because I've even realized when men like outside of Tantra, just in normal sex lives, just from speaking to my girlfriends, and obviously this isn't all men, but a lot of men say, whatever you need, I'm here in this experience to help you, and you know, I'll do you first. And that's such like a move from him, like, I'm gonna make sure you do your thing first and then we'll do me after. But are they dialed in? No. Do they actually really care? No. Does it just feel like a pre-choreographed dance that's happened so many times before? Yes. How do we start integrating some of these tantric practices into our lives, Sandrine?
Yeah, I mean, you have such a refined intuition on all those topics. I'm blown away when I listen to you. Plus, I love how you speak. But
I feel like I sound really stupid when I speak.
You really don't. You sound super smart and very funny. I love it.
I need to shed this in the Tantra.
Yeah, absolutely. No, but I think what you were touching on with what you were describing is, you know, I've been asking myself this very question, especially as a Tantra teacher, like, how do I help my clients to access this experience? What is so different between mainstream sex or pop culture sex and tantric sex? And presence, I think, is one of the biggest difference. And what does presence mean? It means exactly like what you were saying. So first you need to be able to be present to yourself, because with sexuality there are a lot of difficult things that can come up. It can be your personal fears. Maybe I'm not enough. Maybe I won't succeed. Maybe I should be different. Also a lot of shame that has been piled up on us, consciously or not, right? There is still some taboo. There is still some shame about being very sexual, and it's still difficult, right? So when you can hold this for yourself and you learn how to hold it for the other person, then your presence is so much deeper, and the other person feels seen, and you feel cherished, and they feel cherished, and you feel accepted, and you feel, and from this place of acceptance and just being there for what is, obviously the relationship and the connection changes. And the second different thing with Tantra is, I think, we build so much deeper connections, but it starts with your own presence to yourself, I think.
You know, in I suppose in chemistry, they'll have like a small little bottle of something. It's very potent. That's your nano drop of something that's quite actually potent, that can help people, presence and being there, and actually like stripping some stuff away, and like, so you can understand that. I also think an interesting point you just made there, especially, was you're not always going to feel good all the time. I think when people show up to sex and to do sex, is that they want to feel good. It's the immediate gratification. Like, you go to sex to feel good about yourself. I think this is why we have hookup culture so much. But actually, like, to access like good sex is about acknowledging the things you don't feel good about and working through them. So you don't get the good sex without going through understanding the bad. It's similar to like a diet. You know, everyone wants to drop 10 pounds, 15 pounds at the moment. Everyone wants to gain muscles, but you don't gain that unless you actually acknowledge, like, how am I going to experience this good thing that I want?
Again, so
you're just
so tantric. So tantric. It's very true. From tantric point of view,
I'm really not this person, you know. I really struggle to get out of my own head.
I disagree, but but you know, yeah, it's this idea of, if you can only hold that much positive if you can hold that much negative, in a way, if you want to put judgment on it, right? But for example, I can feel myself, if a man cannot hold my emotions, there is no way he's gonna hold my orgasm. It's just not possible. If you are not gonna be able to hold that much pleasure if you cannot hold it when I'm crying because I'm sad.
And modern men is very avoidant. He's very avoidant.
Well, I don't know, because lately I've seen mostly tantric men and they are not. So,
well, like, I have not, and I've seen the Joe Schmoes, and I think men are also raised to be quite avoidant.
Yes, they are. I mean, it's a skill you need to develop, but as a woman also,
and they're going to have a harder time developing it than women, because they're taught not to acknowledge the emotion, which is wrong, and it's toxic and it's bad.
Yeah, but it's very hard on men. That's very true. And it's also the conditioning what you think sex should be, right? Usually we come into it with a scenario with the only purpose of, you know, getting an orgasm, which makes it, by the way, so much harder to actually get it.
Yeah.
But accepting that sex is everything in the end. So yeah, you can cry having sex, and it's so beautiful to be held when you are sad having sex by your partner. You feel so safe, you feel so seen. You can also feel anger. Like, it happened to me sometimes, like, somehow, I don't know, we do something and then I feel this rage, and just being like, okay, obviously you're not gonna put the rage on your partner, but just, okay, let me just feel it for a moment, and then it turns into something else, and then you feel joy, and then you feel ecstasy, and then anything can come out, and why not hold it together, right? Go through it together. And when you open the range of what it can be, then you also open the door to all the magic, right? But indeed, if you cannot hold the tough part, if you cannot be there when you are uncomfortable, when you are afraid, then you are not going to hold the good part either. It's going to be very unsatisfying. But I think for men, like for women, there is such a beauty in showing up like this for you and for the other, because the depth of the connection it creates is just unprecedented, and it's magical.
What's the most requested objective people come to you and ask out of Tantra? I guess with my logical hat on, admitting what I've just said, I would guess it's a lot of women who maybe are a little bit further on in life and they've still not orgasmed. I would guess that's like a good chunk of the women at least coming to see you.
Yeah, for women it is definitely one topic that is very important, and it's actually more complex than what we think, because many of my clients, they come to me like, I don't have orgasm, and then they talk to me and I'm like, this is an orgasm, this is also an orgasm, this is also an orgasm. It's just like they don't look like what you think they should, but they are actually orgasm. And in Tantra there are so many different kinds of orgasm that a lot of the women who think they are not orgasmic, they really are. And also some women, they come, they have the usual orgasm, like, up and then down and then I'm done.
Yeah.
But they want to experience like full body orgasm or multiple orgasm or cervical orgasm, all of that. And then we work on this.
Again, to disclose some personal information, but my orgasm changed after the pandemic.
Wow, I want to know.
I think it takes a while to learn as a woman, like what you like. And I think you need to practice on yourself before involving someone else.
Yes.
Yeah. But I practiced and I figured it out. And then, I don't know, like after the pandemic, I guess I just didn't do it for a while because I was busy with things and I didn't have time for it. And then I just went through a personal change of like in sex, like when I have that with a man, I just don't feel like an equal party in it. So my orgasms started becoming less intense. So like all the like mechanics would happen, but the feeling wouldn't happen anymore. So I don't know. I think that's what it was, but I'm not sure.
Yeah, I can totally understand that. Definitely. Yeah, I think it's amazing that you went on an exploration. And that's the first thing I tell my client. Like, if you don't know how you orgasm, how can you expect your partner to guess, right? And also our bodies are...
And it's fun to practice.
Exactly. It's so much fun. It's so much fun. And especially as women, right, we are so orgasmic in so many ways. Even if you have one or two, like, finding the 20 other method is just so good. And then when you come to a partner, when you are already like, I can have an orgasm just like this and it's magical, then in Tantra we say come into the relationship as a sovereign and not as a beggar. So really you are sharing this overflow of bliss, of orgasm, and then your partner does the same, as opposed to have never orgasm and really counting on you to give me one, otherwise I'm going to be very disappointed.
Can we just say that again? Come in as a sovereign, not a beggar.
Enter the relationship as a king or a queen and not as a beggar. And it works for sex, it works for the rest of the relationship, right? When you are already full of love for yourself, for the universe, for others, whatever, you share this overflow of love and it's magical. If you come and you're like, it's so hard to find love, nobody loves me, then it's a lot of pressure on that partner.
Don't be needy and desperate.
Yeah, I mean, we all are at some point, right?
Yeah.
But filling your own cup first, really taking care of what is it that fulfills me. And then you share that with a partner and they can do it for you. It's also fun. They can also show you new ways. But it comes from a place where you are already the sovereign of your own sexuality. And it's so much glory, right, to share with that.
I mean, I'm going to ask you some personal questions now and you can say no. But like, how many in one session? Well, how many orgasms have you had in one session?
I don't know, because
Double figures?
yeah, for sure. But the thing is,
Yeah,
with
yeah,
Tantra,
for sure.
yeah, for sure. But
This is quite shocking for the audience.
Sorry, I don't want to shock people, and I know at some point you are so in this tantric world that you forget that it's a bit weird. So
But it's possible. It's out there.
yeah, of course it's out there. But also, what I want to say is, with tantric orgasm, a lot of them that they last so long. It's more like an orgasmic state than an orgasm. So you can orgasm for an hour, 2 hours, 3 hours.
What, just
And,
pure orgasm?
Yeah, but it doesn't feel like the same exactly as, like clitoris orgasm, for example.
Yeah.
It feels a bit different, but it's still waves and waves and waves of ecstasy.
So you like, oh.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And sometimes you are moving a lot, sometimes you're just lying down, but it's like your whole body lights up. It's like, imagine what the pleasure you have in your genitals, it comes to your entire body and it expands, and it's amazing. And it lasts for very, very long time.
I guess as well, part of that is you have to know physically what things do down there, but you also have to know spiritually what things do down there. Because I didn't know that the clitoris had so many different parts to it as well, let alone the vulva.
I know. Yeah, but I think like getting a great sexual education is a necessity for everyone anyway. But I think in Tantra there is also what we call the energy body, and I think it exists also in yoga, in Qigong, Tai Chi, Chinese medicine, right? A lot of cultures have this concept of that. Our body is also energetic, and when you work with Kundalini yoga, like we were discussing, you wake up this Kundalini, and while you circulate the energy, you circulate the pleasure. Right, you circulate the orgasm, and then your whole body lights up a little bit like a Christmas tree. Instead of having just like one light, it becomes like.
How do I awake my Kundalini?
Tantra classes, Kundalini yoga classes.
If I did want to go to a Tantra class, I don't have to throw myself into a Tantra sex class. I could just go to a Tantra normal class.
Yeah, that's such a good question, and I cannot say that enough. Choose carefully when you go to your first Tantra class and all the others after, right? So, because it's not a regulated term, so everybody can call this a Tantra teacher. Everything can be called a Tantra class. So before you go, you need to do a little bit of research. And I've had clients who were doing more research on choosing a hairdresser than on choosing a Tantra teacher. So when
you can imagine some men just think, oh, Tantra, horny, I'm going to go to this class. And
definitely, and there is a Me Too in Tantra as well, where teachers have been accused of, so it needs to be very clear several things. First thing, ask about their qualification. Did they actually train with someone? How long did it take? Does it look like it's a training? Because you need one, really. Then you can ask about the lineage. In Tantra, you receive your teaching in a spiritual lineage.
How do you know you completed Tantra?
Tantra teacher training?
Yeah.
Well, usually you have a diploma.
Ah, there is a diploma.
There is a diploma. Yeah.
It's
Well, there
not
are
just-
many, so just pick the good ones.
But it's not just like, today I'm a master.
Well, you could, but then I wouldn't go to your classes.
Okay, so get the
See how they
Yeah.
train, how long they have been practices, what is their own practice, because if they don't do their own practice, then probably they are not very good Tantra teachers. And then ask questions about what is going to happen in that room. Am I going to interact with other people? If I come with my partner, can I practice only with my partner? Is there going to be nudity?
boundaries.
Is there going to be a consent and boundary training? Is it a trauma-informed space? Is everything by invitation, or do I have to do what they ask me, or can I just walk out? How do you take care of things that come up if they feel difficult? There are really a lot of questions, and how they answer, or the willingness to answer, is really something I would look for. If you get an answer like, don't worry, everything is going to be okay, or, I'm your guru, I'm going to know better than you, all this. And also check, do facilitators engage with participants? Because I think this is where there is a risk also, right, of facilitators or gurus thinking, saying things like, if you have sex with me, you will progress so much more. Like it has happened, those kind of things.
Manipulation.
Yeah, and the facilitator is in a position of power. So check the ethics, Google them. I had a client recently, they told me, I'm so glad you told me to Google them, because I had registered, I Googled them, and actually they went to jail for sexual assault. And I was like, yeah, Google them.
Oh. What if you do fancy your Tantra teacher? What if there is a connection? Like, I guess, like, is that okay if everyone's on board? Or is it an abuse of power?
I think different schools have different answers to that because, yeah, of course it can happen, right?
Yeah.
My personal view is to first you give it time, right? Especially if you're in a Tantra retreat, you know, after 7 days of Tantra, you're completely high, you come back, like you have had revelations and things, and give it time. You can have the conversation with the person, obviously, but if they rush into it, I would say probably it's not a very good idea.
Yeah.
Give it time and then have a lot of clarity. For my festival, for example, we say that nothing can happen 6 weeks after the festival. Then you can engage in a conversation, see what happens, but then they probably cannot be your Tantra teacher anymore.
Just like a cooling off period.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, we've kind of spoken a lot about women and what women get out of Tantra. We touched lightly on men, but I just want to focus on them for a second because I do genuinely believe they're probably more behind in the race to achieve what you might achieve in Tantra, or just because you blow your load doesn't mean that you've experienced all that your body can give you. But the men coming to your practice, what are some trends of why they're going to your practice that you see? My initial inkling would say it's to last longer, but I could be wrong.
Yeah, I think you have all the classic sexuality questions, right? How do I last longer? How do I become a better lover? I get that a lot and I think it's so cool, right? How do I learn how to please my partner because everything I seem to do is not working, or, you know, this worked last time, but this time she didn't like it, the exact same thing. Those kind of questions. Also, I think, you know, men receive a lot of conditioning on sexuality as well. Like, you should do this, you should be like that. And especially if they were brought up in a religious family, there is also a lot of shame, also a lot of blame. And actually, several of my clients, they come to me because they have questions on abstinence or semen retention. Because in Tantra, you learn semen retention, which is, you know, dissociating orgasm from ejaculation.
Semen retention.
Semen, yeah, sorry, my accent is not getting any better.
Okay. We've gone from the semen in the
in the salmon too.
Yeah.
Yeah, so all these are questions, but a lot also come with relationship question. You know, I haven't had sex with my wife for a long time. How do we rekindle the thing? Or
do you ever get
attracted to someone else? What do I do?
Do you ever get men who are curious because they're attracted in other men?
A little bit, but not that many. And I think it's because I'm very clear that I'm super happy for anyone to join my workshops, and Tantra can be practiced no matter what your gender is, no matter what your sexual orientation is. Like, this is really open. But my own experience with men especially is very limited. So I'm happy to help them, but I think there are probably people who can do that better than me.
But it's just the idea of it's a safe space, and, you know, I guess maybe they will reveal some stuff that they're interested in or they don't feel like they can explore. Because when I was a dancer, I don't know how, like, why it would always come out to me, but like I'd go do my dance and just kind of be like, oh, what are you into? Da, da, da. And then they would say, well, I really fantasize about my wife using a strap-on or other men or something. So it just made me really think there that there's probably some men who come to you and think it's a safe space, and it is a safe space to disclose information that they might feel ashamed. Because I guess, like, the biggest theme today that underpins all of this is shame. You know, there's shame in, like, every single category of person. You can't win and be any single type of person and not feel shame, you know. Like, if you're from, you know, Islam and you're interested in sex, you will be shamed for that, you know. If you are this macho alpha man and you do want a little strap on, you'll be shamed for that. If you're a woman who has had sex with lots of different people, you will be shamed for that. So you really can't win at the end of the day. Yeah,
and if you are a virgin at 40-year-old, you will be shamed just as well. Yeah, that's so true. And this is actually usually where we end up, right? Like, there are a lot of issues, a lot of emotions, a lot of things, all of that, when you take them away one by one, they lead to the bottom one, which is always shame. It's really such a hard thing to deal with. It's probably the hardest, and usually it takes time before we actually reach this point of this was it the whole time. So it takes a lot of very delicate work, a lot of acceptance, a lot of safe space before we can reach that. And it's hard for men and women, but probably harder for men because it's really even a taboo for them to think that they can be vulnerable and that they can just accept that somewhere there is pain inside of them. So it's exactly what happens.
They're very avoidant of feeling pain, but I think like in relationships, what is interesting, let's say you're having an argument with them and you're just saying how you feel like when you did that, when you spoke about me that way to that person, it didn't make me feel good. And you can even say it in a nice way of, I'm really sorry that, you might feel bad that I'm bringing this up to you, but I think it's important for me to voice it. And the thing that I always feel that I've been met, and so many of my girlfriends have been met with, is why are you guilt tripping me? Why are you trying to make me feel guilty? Because you deserve to feel guilty. This is what you have done, and I'm just explaining it. And you are feeling guilty for what you've done. I'm not trying to make you feel guilty, but for some reason you cannot own the feeling of guilt because you're so avoidant of feeling it. Nothing is more attractive to me than someone doing something bad and saying, look, I'm the bad guy, I did it. I think there's like a real strength and hotness in owning the shit you do. Okay, granted, like nothing too crazy, but owning the thing you did. And that's just why I think, especially growing up, and I guess you're more of an adult, I'd say after 25, going towards your 30s, then you've grown up. I can't respect someone or call them a strong example of masculinity if they don't own their shit. I wouldn't want to fuck someone like that. I wouldn't want to have someone have a baby with me and share a bloodline with someone like that. But it just seems like such a common problem. And I just don't know why men are so avoidant of feeling that feel of guilt. Maybe it's because they feel pressure to be this guy, and I don't know. Yeah,
I don't have a direct answer to that either, like from society perspective. But what I see definitely with my client is that behind men who are having a hard time to own that, there is a lot of pain as well, right? And it shows up in different ways in men and women. And I think for men, indeed, it shows that sometimes it looks avoidant or it looks like they cannot access the feeling. And every time, actually, in what I have seen, is not that they don't want to, it's just they don't know how to, because so many barriers have been put between them and that feeling. And they are guilted also about so many things that don't feel right for them. And I think it's amazing how women have reclaimed so many things lately, and I am waiting for men to do the same, right? We have rebelled about so many things, and it's not over, but we have taken power in this. And it looks like, of course, men are more privileged in so many ways, but I still think they have their own revolution. And you can hear voices already around that, like being a man means also this, it means also that, so that they can reclaim their full masculinity. And I think as a woman, I definitely craved exactly what you were saying, like a man who is standing in his truth, in his power, in his beauty. It's irresistible. And the opposite is not.
Do you think it's do you think maybe what we've just described there is that they're fearful of being perceived as weak? Do you think that's maybe one of the biggest things that they're scared of, and like maybe why when they do show up to sex that they can't really fully connect?
Well, that's what I hear for sure.
Yeah.
When men start talking, this is what comes up. Like they have this, it's impossible to be weak. They just cannot. They don't have that right. They don't have that possibility. And weakness is definitely one thing. But on the other hand, where it gets really complicated is also getting into their full power can also be sometimes not accepted, right? Because full masculine sexuality or sexual energy is often thought as scary, threatening, too much. So I feel they are kind of stuck between the two. Like they cannot be weak, but they cannot be too powerful. And that quickly becomes impossible to find the right middle, right? And often, including for women, there is this thing like, in vulnerability, my safety lies. And when you accept your vulnerability, you accept your power at the same time. It's really hard to accept one when you don't accept the other one. And men, I feel, but again, it's just what I hear, so I don't want to put words in anyone's mouth there. But what I hear is that they are stuck between the two. They cannot be weak, they cannot be powerful. So what is left? And there is no room for them to feel like a individual.
Yeah, like we've chopped their balls off a bit.
A little bit.
Can't say that they didn't have it coming. At least the older ones. The older ones are annoying. Like the younger ones, they have hope. The final question. It's a deep question, so we'll have to go back into the waves. I've always been a bit iffy about this saying, because I think you have to be careful to what and who you apply it to. But do you think it's pragmatic to say vulnerability is strength?
Yeah, I would definitely share your concern on how do you apply it.
Yeah.
But in my personal experience, it has been crazily true. So every time I would build a wall, guard myself, because I felt I cannot expose this part of me, otherwise I'm going to be abandoned, rejected, criticized, blamed.
Someone's going to attack me for it.
Yeah. It feels unsafe, right? That's the definition. And
just like the men we spoke about.
Yeah, exactly. Every time I went, okay, what if? First of all, I hold it for myself. Actually, I acknowledge that there is a part of me who feels this way, right?
Mm.
And then what if I just share it and take the risk? And this is the scariest thing I have ever done, where every time I went into, okay, I have to share something that feels very vulnerable, but what I really want now is this, or what I really meant is that. And then moving through the fear of what is going to happen next. But very often, almost always, actually, when you share it without aggression, without expectation, just, okay, I'm putting this out there, it has been received like so well, because in a way, when you do that, you set the tone of the conversation to authenticity and trust and truth.
Yeah.
And then very often the other person resonates and answers on that same level.
It's neutralizing.
Yeah, I would say it's opening, right? You open a field that was not opened before, and then they have the choice to jump with you on that field that is open, that is true, or they can reject you. They can still do that, but then you have your answer.
It's kind of like two people having guns, and then one person being brave enough to put down the gun, and the other person is like, actually, I'm going to put down my gun too. Interesting.
Yeah, and that's where like the energy in which you do it is so important. If you do it from a higher place of truth and trust and being true to yourself and being transparent and setting a standard for the conversation, then very often they do reply in this way. But if you do it in a manipulative way, or if you are still like, maybe I'll say it but not too loud because this shit's scary, then you get the answer on the same wavelength in a way. So
you've got to commit.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. Oh my gosh. Well, thank you, Sandrine. I feel like we could keep on going on forever. I
would actually love to, but I'm afraid I have to let
you
do your job.
We'll have to have you back again. There's definitely another way to work in another episode, but thank you for coming on today. And do you want to share some links of where people can find you and whatnot?
Yeah, actually, I was so excited to come, and it was like even a million times better than what I imagined. I'm so grateful. Thank you for this conversation. It was amazing. And yeah, of course, so you can find me. My website is sandrinebettinelli.com. I'm on Instagram and Facebook also. I'm also the co-founder of the Corfu Tantra Festival. So if you want to join us on the beach next September, you can find me there.
Does anything spicy happen there?
Some.
Okay, then we'll leave that there. Thank you so much for listening, guys. All that boring stuff, like and subscribe. Ugh, hate saying that, but thank you so much, and a big thank you to Sandrine. I will be definitely asking myself some questions.